few weeks ago we did a series of Q&A videos where people ask us questions. We had put it on a community tab and allowed people to ask questions, and then we answered them. And today what we're going to do is, of course, every time we did a video, in the comments people added more questions. So not as many as in the beginning. So this will be the last Q&A for I guess a good long while, and then maybe someday we'd do that again if you're interested. But these questions come from those videos that we already did, just in the comment section, and also maybe a couple that people emailed me. So you ready for this again?
I guess.
Ready? So the very first one, a lot of these are for Matt, but the first one is for sure. Have you ever had any strange encounters when you were hunting in Georgia? Matt mostly deer hunts in the state of Georgia. Him and his dad have since he was a little boy.
Yeah, I've been chased by hogs a couple of times. 2 different times that I can remember.
One was in the dark, wasn't it?
Both of them was in the dark. And yeah. And I had to jump up a tree both times.
I laughed at Matt one time when he come back. He said he was going into his tree stand early in the morning. Of course, it was dark, and he started hearing this noise, and then he heard what sounded like galloping hoofs. Yeah,
it was on I was walking down an old red clay road, and then I was going to turn off the road and go down in the woods. And the road was packed really, really hard. It was early. It was in bow season, and it was early and it had been hot. And yeah, it sounded just like little horse hooves coming, and it just kept getting louder, and then I began to realize probably what it was. So I just stepped off the side of the road and just dropped my bow and shinnied up 3 or 4 feet up a tree, and I think it was, best I could tell, it was still dark, but there was 2 or 3 of them, and they just run right under me and just kept going.
I just thought that was funny, though, when the way Matt described the galloping hooves, and he said it's not funny because it disrupted his morning.
And you can't see, and you don't know if you're about to get,
Yeah.
And the other time was way off the road, way back in the woods, and I was almost to my tree. And I just began, I could hear myself walking in the cold leaves, the frosty leaves. That's about all you could hear, but then something caught my ear, so I stopped. And then I could hear stuff all around me, and then I could hear them grunting and snorting, and I guess they were feeding, and I realized I was in the middle of a bunch of them. I don't know how they didn't run. And I was trying to figure out how close I was to my tree. I was pretty close. And then they began to move a little quicker and get a little closer to me, and I couldn't see them. And I had my flashlight, but I was just all through the woods trying to figure out where the closest one was, and I thought I was going to have to shoot them. And I panned the light, and then I could see my tree stand about 20 yards away, and I just took off running to it and got to where I could get up on the foot platform, a couple of feet off the ground, and got up on it and spun around, flipped the safety off, and turned the flashlight on, just waited. And they all finally filtered out and it's gone. And I climbed on up and hunted the rest of the morning, didn't see nothing. But yeah, that's 2 times that's happened.
Eerie feeling, I guess.
Walked in on a bear one morning, years and years and years ago, and it wasn't in Georgia though. I guess that'd be another story, but that was pretty scary.
Yeah.
It's always in the dark every time.
Yeah, that's what makes it scary. If it was daylight, it wouldn't. You could judge and see them, and they would probably see you too and be gone. Which I guess they can see in the dark though, so they knew you were there. Yeah. And
it's always way back then when nothing but the little 2-cell flashlights, it'd shine about 4 feet. That's all you could see.
Yeah. Oh goodness. Okay, the next one is, did you have a favorite age, or do you have a favorite age, and would you want to, like, if you could pick an age to stay at forever, what would it be?
I don't know, probably 30.
30?
Yeah.
I think for me it'd be maybe 40, because you can still do everything I could at 40, at least, do everything I'd always been able to do. But then you have so much more experience and, I guess, wisdom about knowing who you are and knowing what matters in life and all those things. So I think I would say 40. At 30, I feel like I still had a lot to learn. I mean, I still have a lot to learn. I don't mean it like that. I learn all the time. In one way, I would say 50 even, but that would be I don't feel like I'm as physically fit as I was maybe at 40. And I know my eyesight sure isn't. So.
Did you say you had some wisdom?
I said I had more than I did when I was 30.
Where'd you put it?
Thanks. I still need a lot. I need to gain a lot of wisdom, but
Yeah,
but I had a lot more at 40 than I did at 30. And I
Well,
had more at 50 than I did at 40, but at 50 I find it harder to do some things than I did. But at 40 I think I could still do everything I had always been able to do, and I had good eyesight still. And so I think 40 would be a good age for me.
The reason I said 30 is just because I felt just like I did when I was 18. The girls were still little, you know.
Yeah.
And still kind of course, they're always fun, but it was just a fun time when they were
It was just a good
small,
time in
running all
life.
over the house and everything. Moment I was scared to death trying to pay for everything, but
Yeah.
still,
Joyful time.
yeah, it was. And I still felt like I could do anything I wanted to do, and I pretty much still can. It's just I'm a little slower at it, and I can't see it.
Yeah, and we're more wary than we
Yeah.
were then, because you're like, well, like before, you'd never think about climbing up something, you might fall. Now you're like, well, if I did fall, it's
Yeah.
gonna,
Yeah, it's gonna be bad.
it's gonna be bad. Okay, what does Matt like better, fried tomatoes, fried zucchini, or BLTs?
I sure do like BLTs, but I like was it fried tomatoes?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and fried zucchini. I don't think we've ever ate fried zucchini. I mean, we probably maybe have at some point, but I don't make fried zucchini. But
I sure
you
like
love fried tomatoes.
Gosh, yeah, I do.
And we eat a lot of BLTs. We all love BLTs,
Yeah.
especially in the summer when you just have the fresh tomato. Makes it so much better. Thinking about summer and gardening, what do we can and what will we never can again? So what do we can? We can a lot of green beans, pickles and jellies and
Tomatoes.
peppers and jam, tomatoes, kraut. We make kraut. Potatoes. We didn't do no potatoes this year though yet, unless we do. And then what would we?
Deer meat.
Deer meat, yeah. What would we never can again? Most of the things that we can them because we already liked them. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I can't think of anything.
The only
we
thing I
wouldn't
can think of, one year I did make a tomato preserves, and I think we liked it, but I didn't ever make it again. And I must not have liked it enough to make sure that I made it the next year. But I would like to try it again and see if it's something that we did like. Now I made butters like pumpkin butter and those things. I made those a couple of times, and I don't do those anymore. But mostly because they don't. I had trouble, and you can do a lot of research about it, but whether or not you should even can something like that. But for me, they didn't, what do you call it? They didn't stay shelf stable very long. Sorry, I'm having trouble talking today. They went bad too quickly. So I don't know if that was on my part, or if that was, like they say, squash is one of the more difficult things to can. But we certainly do freeze a lot, though, of thinking about winter squash, like pumpkins and things like that. We love to just keep them whole and then eat on them as the winter goes on, especially thinking about butternut squash and the green and white striped cushaws, if they last, if they don't start to go bad. But if they do, we usually freeze them. So I don't know. Can you think of anything else?
We used to can corn a little.
Yeah.
But we hadn't done that in a long time.
And we make some things like, and we've not done this year or last year, but usually we'll do it ever so many years and then have enough to last. But like a soup base, which for us a soup base is just tomatoes, okra, and corn. That's all we put in it. And then when we open a jar, we add the potatoes and the onions and whatever else we want to add. Mm-hmm. But we didn't do that last year or this year. And I think we've got maybe one jar left in the pantry, in the canning shelves, maybe not even that. So sometimes there's things like that just don't get done if you have a really busy year, or maybe that's the year those things don't do as good.
Right.
Anyway. What was your favorite TV show and then your favorite Western movie?
Was or is?
Well, was, whatever. You can do both. What when you were growing up, maybe?
I liked Gunsmoke awful good, and I still do. We've been watching it for days, even now. And my favorite movie, probably Tombstone. I'm a Western kind of guy. I like Westerns, and I like that one.
And for me, I don't know. I love the Waltons. I don't watch TV a whole lot, but I love the Waltons. Of course, when I was growing up, there was all kinds of ones that I liked, but I still love the Waltons. And I love Gunsmoke. I'm like mad. I love all the old Westerns, the Virginian and the Wagon Train and all those.
Yeah.
And I don't know about movies. I'm not a big movie person either.
Yeah, we don't watch movies much, even now at all. It's usually just the old stuff like that.
What's Matt's favorite wild game, and then what's his favorite freshwater fish?
My favorite wild game is deer meat, of course. Backstrap on the grill is what I like the best. And then my favorite fish would be crappie, fried. Which I don't fish for them much. We trout fish mostly because that's what's available. And I can eat them, but I like the crappie better, and I like walleye a whole lot better.
And do you like them? How do you like them cooked? All that stuff, baked, fried, or grilled?
I like the fish fried, and the deer meat grilled. It's my favorite place to eat them.
Do we like Brunswick stew, and have we made it?
I'm sure you like it, and I know I've eaten it, but I used to make a version similar. I guess I don't know if you could call it.
We didn't call it Brunswick stew, but it was very similar, to the same that Matt made with deer meat.
Right.
Yeah. It's funny, growing up, I didn't really know what Brunswick stew was, but it's just a stew. We would just say that's just a stew, and then I wouldn't realize, that some people call that Brunswick stew. It's one of those things. Do we have what's your favorite ice cream?
Probably vanilla bean. Now, hot chocolate awful good too.
Yeah, I'm partial to chocolate. It's my favorite probably. And then do we make it? So when I was growing up, we made it often, especially thinking of church people, different people in the church community. If you went to their house, that was common. Almost everybody had an ice cream maker, and they would make ice cream, and then everybody that was there got to enjoy it. But me and Matt had not. I think when we were first married, your mama got me some kind of little tiny ice cream maker, and we made it a few times. And then we hadn't made it for many years, and then this summer we actually have been making it again. We've only made peach ice cream. It was my nephew Ben let us pick the peaches off of his tree, and I don't know why, I just got it in my mind that would make such good ice cream. I need to make some ice cream, so we have, and they did, and it is good. Yeah, it is really good. So, but I love chocolate.
Yeah. And
as far as store-bought ice cream in our area, there's a brand, Mayfield, and that's my favorite ice cream. But the homemade is the best for sure.
A little bit of most tracks is good.
Yeah. What was our first date? What was the first date that we went on? I think our first date was not like what most people probably would think of. We were set up on a blind date by my cousin and her husband. And if I remember right, we just basically rode around in the back of his, what would it have been? Would it have been a truck or a Bronco or Blazer or something?
Blazer, I think's what he had, and we just...
Or I don't know if he had a truck then, and we just all sat in the front on the bench, I think.
I don't remember.
I don't know. Seems like sitting real close to you on one side and to her on the other.
And then you were smitten.
Yeah, I was smitten. I was, yeah. But we rode around, maybe up on the parkway.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It's a long time ago. I don't remember much of that.
After that, one of our pretty quickly that we went on dates was a coon hunting trip.
Did we?
Yeah. Same thing with Debbie and Keith.
Well, how'd you like that?
Yeah, I liked it because I was with you, yeah. We rode a lot of horses in those days, rode horses a lot.
Yeah, we used to have horses back then.
And we did go out to eat some, but not much. One of the first, or I guess it was the first place Matt ever took me to eat was that Japanese or in Waynesville, or a Chinese place?
I think it was a Chinese place.
Yeah. And I'd never been to a Chinese restaurant of any kind. I'd never been nowhere like that. So Matt had to order for me.
Was it good?
Yeah, I'm sure it was. I bet that place ain't even there now.
No. Gosh, that's 30 whatever years ago.
And another place we liked to go in those days, usually with a big crowd, but was called Poncho's. And it's not there anymore either.
Mm-hmm.
It was in Asheville.
It was a Mexican restaurant, and it was good.
Yeah, I love their smothered chicken.
Yep.
Okay. Would you rather hunt or fish?
Hunt.
That's easy for you.
Yep.
And then do the girls or I hunt or fish? I don't do any of it, none of it. And the girls, when they were young, they would go with Matt hunting. And they would go fishing some, but they're not like Matt. They're not like every year getting ready for deer season and going all the time or going by themselves or anything. They just did it as to be part of Matt's. I mean, they enjoyed it, but it was more of a father-daughter thing. So they would go. There's lots of funny stories about them falling asleep in the blinds and eating and scaring the deer off and talking and couldn't be quiet. But they did used to hunt with Matt. And then today, of course, Katie's become like obsessed with fishing. So she's, in the last year or two, she's really got into fishing.
Yep.
But I don't at all, never have. I'd rather go with them and just enjoy the outdoors. Now, Matt used to, when we were dating and before we had Corey and Katie, I would go with him deer hunting, and he would take me somewhere and set me out and then go to where he was, and I would just sit there. I'd read a book. I'd look around. I would think I heard deer. I never seen one that I remember. And then Matt would say I probably just heard squirrels. I couldn't tell the difference. But, okay, why did we call Miss Cindy, and what did Matt call her? So Miss Cindy was Matt's mother. She passed away in June this year. But Matt called her.
Let's call her Mama.
Called her Mama. And the reason we called her Miss Cindy was back when we had Corey and Katie, when we were going to have them, before they were born, they would have been her first. Matt's the only child. They would have been her, her first and only, turned out, grandchildren. So we asked her, on my side, my brother had already had children, so Pap and Granny was already Pap and Granny. That was already set in stone. But we asked Miss Cindy what she would like to be called, and she come up with Miss Cindy. She didn't really want to be a granny. She didn't want to be a mamaw. Didn't want to be a grandma, I don't guess. So she said, how about Miss Cindy? And of course we just said, that's fine, whatever you want to be called. So that's why they called her Miss Cindy. And in the same way that my brothers and I and all of our family ended up calling, what I used to call Mama and Daddy, ended up calling them now Pap and Granny. The same thing happened with me and Matt calling Miss Cindy, instead of him calling her Mama or me calling her Cindy. I started calling her Miss Cindy too. What is our favorite dish to cook? That would be so hard. I just don't really have a favorite one. There's so many things I love to cook and fix for my family. I think about like breakfast stuff. I love biscuits and gravy, but then I love like the red eye gravy, chocolate gravy, sausage gravy, bacon gravy, tomato gravy. There's just so many things to go with those biscuits. And then I love toast and eggs and bacon. There's just so many. And then you go on to, thinking about supper meals.
Yeah.
Probably one of my close up at the top, though, would be soup beans and cornbread and fried potatoes and,
That's
green onions from the garden. You can't hardly beat that.
Yeah.
Stewed potatoes, soupy potatoes, we would call them. That would be a real meal.
Yep.
So right up there at the top. I don't know, for you, I guess yours would be some kind of deer meat. I love deer meat, but I would take the soup beans probably over the deer meat.
Yeah, I like probably the grilled tenderloin. Marinate it and grill it, and that and maybe some fried potatoes or something like that. Especially fried potatoes and ramps.
Yeah.
That's a fine meal.
Matt has we have a video or two about the grilled tenderloin, and then we also have one about a deer roast that Matt makes especially every Christmas and Thanksgiving. And thinking about my brother Paul, he says that's his favorite, is that roast. And he said, he hopes he never has to pick a last meal here on this earth, but if he did, it would be Matt's deer roast. So that's certainly his favorite.
Yeah, cooked it Long time.
Yeah, it's really good, and I'll link to those videos if you didn't get to see them. Oh, favorite dessert, I skipped that one. For me, it's Arsh potato cake, Arsh tater cake, we would say, but it's a potato. It's got potatoes in it, mashed potatoes, and Arsh is how we would differentiate between sweet potatoes and white potatoes is Arsh taters, Arsh potato or Arsh taters. So the Arsh tater cake, and I have a video about that too. That's my favorite, hands down, my favorite dessert. I don't know about Matt.
What was that thing you made here not long ago that I said was probably better than the pumpkin
roll? Oh, the cinnamon. You like the cinnamon orange bread?
Yeah. That's by far
Matt's
the
favorite.
best.
Yeah, we'll link to that one. Link to that one too. Did you ever play any pranks like April Fool's Day and things like that?
Me?
Yeah.
I used to when I was younger, but I don't now.
Yeah, I'm not big on pranks. I never have been.
I used to prank you a lot when we were very first married, and you get mad at me.
I get mad at Matt. Even when I was young, I was never one to pull pranks on people because I didn't like people to do it to me, so I didn't want them to do it to other people. But yeah, when we were first married, Matt would do things like I was taking a shower and he would come in there without me knowing it and then pour cold water over the shower curtain.
And turn the light off.
And then turn the light out. I'd get so mad, I couldn't stand it.
I used to jump out of the closet.
Jump out of the closet, jump out in the hide in the edge of the hallway, like in one of the doors, and then jump out. He'd do all kinds of stuff like that.
Then I'd take advantage of your deathly fear of rats.
Yeah, he would do that.
Girls used to have stuffed animals, just a house full of them, and I would tie a fishing line to them, and as she come down the hall, drag them across the floor in front of her, and she would just about turn a flip. She'd scare us about.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
I'm glad Matt finally quit. He don't do that anymore.
Well, I hadn't thought about it a whole lot. I might revive that.
No. It'd make me so mad I couldn't stand it because I don't do that. I'd be like, I don't play pranks like that on you. Matt said, well, you can. I'm like, no, I don't want to, and I don't want you to play them on me.
I don't know if I'd do that now. I'm a little scared of you now.
Yeah. Oh, you're not.
You got a little hateful in your old days.
No, you're not. Anyway, so we're not big pranks people, I don't guess.
I might wake up with a frying pan on my head.
Yeah, you might. Yeah.
See there?
No. I might just deprive you of like cornbread or something.
Yeah, we can't have that.
Yeah. So, let's see. Do we remember when we got saved? That was a question from somebody. So we are people who believe in, are believers, and I certainly remember, and I'm sure Matt does too. I was very, very young when I got saved. It's at the old New Martins Creek Baptist Church. The church is tore down now. It's not there anymore. But that was where I got saved, and I was probably in second grade. I don't remember. Well, I was in second grade. I don't remember how old I was, but I remember how I felt, and still today think it's the best thing I ever did for my life. Of course, I've done lots of things that was not right in my life along the way, but committing my life to Christ, even though I fail daily, that was the best thing I've ever done for sure. Yeah.
I think me and you were dating when I got saved.
Yeah, when we dated, and we still lived in Canton.
Right. Long time ago.
Long time ago, yeah. So let's see, favorite hunting and fishing equipment that Matt uses. That could be a video all by itself, I guess.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly if they meant, of course, maybe what kind of gun do you hunt with for deer hunting?
Well, that could also be a video by
it
itself,
could be
because I've got several, and
depends on if it's muzzle loading season or.
Yeah, and I just kind of take spells liking one for a while, and then I'll put it up, and then use another one, and of course the bows. You know, I have always been fascinated with bows, and I shoot them even now, year round. All year long I shoot my bows, and then when bow season's over, I'll put them up and hunt with a gun for a while, but I'll still periodically come out in the yard and practice, and it's just, I don't know what my favorite one would be. I like so much of it, you know. Then there's all the knives and flashlights, and yeah.
You'd always
should do a video on some of that stuff.
Yeah,
I guess.
you should. So you'd always, though, thinking about something you'd never go hunting or fishing without would probably be like a knife.
Yeah.
And your a flashlight and things like that.
Right. And And I used to, I don't do it much now, I used to build my own arrows. And that just keeps you kind of in the game. All year long, you've got something to do that has to do with what your hobby is, you know. I used to pour my own muzzleloader bullets. And I've still got all that stuff, I just don't really do it much anymore. So outside of working, that's what I'm doing, something to do with mostly hunting.
So who is most alike between, like, our family, Corey and Katie and me and Matt? We may have different opinions, but I would say that Matt and Katie are a whole lot alike, and me and Corey are a whole lot alike. Except I do think Corey's a whole lot like Matt too. So maybe they're both more like you in a lot of ways. I guess they're a mixture of us, but
I'll just go ahead and finish the rest of it.
whenever they're bad, they're like Matt.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
No, I do think Katie and Matt's a whole lot alike. They both got a fiery temper, although Corey does too. I don't have a temper. I don't get upset.
Yeah, Corey's, you just you gotta push on her a whole lot to ever get it out. But Katie's like me, she's cocked and ready all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then do I sing? Like Corey and Katie and Paul all sing, and my other family members do too, but I don't. I sing in the church choir, things like that, but I was not blessed with a beautiful voice like they were. Matt has a beautiful voice though, if you could get him to sing. He used to sing all the time around the house, play the guitar.
Yeah, I ain't got time for that now.
Another thing, we got several questions about this, is about my hair. It's funny, people want to know if it's naturally curly or not. It is not naturally curly. It's not. And then, let's see. Oh, and I was going to say too, a lot of people say, well, I've seen pictures where you used to wear it straight. Why don't you wear it straight again? Well, I did wear it straight for a long time. But it's so much easier to fix if it's curly. And I have very fine and very thin hair. So the older you get, the more fine and the more thin it gets. And so, you know, I think personally that it looks better. You can't see through it as much if it's curly and poofed out, poofy, got the poofy hair, than if it was really slicked down to my head and my ears were sticking through it, because it's fine and thin.
Nobody don't ask me about my hair.
Yeah, nobody don't ask you about yours. You want me to ask you?
I'm a little...
Is yours natural?
I'm a little natural what? It's naturally gone.
Yeah. Somebody probably will ask in this video why Matt shaved his face, because he had a beard probably in the last one. My sister-in-law and my brother Steve and Kim, they've always teased, ever since me and Matt's been married from the very beginning, they teased that they figured out that real quickly that Matt must be in the witness protection program, because he changed his facial hair more than anybody they knew. You know, he'd have a beard, then he wouldn't. Then he'd have a mustache, then he wouldn't. Then he'd have a goatee, then he wouldn't. And all variations of that. And then for a long time, you had a great big beard. Remember that?
I remember, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and then that was gone. And it's just always something different.
Yeah, I can't deal with much for long with it. It just drives me insane.
So he just has to change up.
And then shaving every day drives me insane.
Yeah. Like my brother Steve, he had a mustache for 25 years or something. I don't know. It was crazy. Forever. It's just him. You just think of him with just a mustache. And then a couple of years ago, they went to the beach and with a family vacation, all of their family. And somehow while he was there, he just went in the bathroom and shaved his mustache and come out. Everybody was shocked. And then he come home and we're all shocked, because we're like, you look so different, you know. And my Uncle Henry always had a beard like that too. And I remember one of the first time I seen him without a beard, I was like, you look sick. You know, it's almost like he looked sickly or something. He wasn't, but it was just from so many years of seeing him with a beard. Mm-hmm. When Corey and Katie were little, Matt did change his facial hair like that. But, you know, when they're babies, they don't really pay attention as much. But they were probably, maybe...
They were in their high chairs still.
Yeah, maybe 2 years old, maybe, 18 months old, something like that. And Matt shaved his mustache, and I don't remember if they you come out of the bathroom. I don't remember. I remember it was in the living room though, and Matt just come and sat down in the chair and in his chair, and they were playing around, and then all of a sudden they seen him, and they started crying and backing up, and I was like, "What?" You know, we knew probably what it was, and they said, "Put it back, Daddy, put it back," and then they just took off running. Both of them, they run to their room and just cried and carried on. And they were mad about it for days, wasn't they? They were just so upset that Matt's mustache was gone. That was funny. So when you were growing up, did you have a favorite TV or celebrity crush? And if so, who was it?
Probably.
Yours was probably like every other person, I would say, people, I mean, lots of men, boys, whatever, in the 70s, could I guess?
Farrah Fawcett.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, probably Farrah Fawcett.
Yeah.
I remember so many of my friends, their brothers' rooms, that's who they'd have on the wall.
Oh, yeah, I had one of those posters.
Yeah, I have those on the wall.
Yeah. I'm thinking about getting another one.
No, you're not.
And put on our wall.
No. For me, who would it be? I liked Rick Springfield a lot when I was that age. It's probably the same kind of era as Farrah Fawcett, I guess. Or maybe Farrah Fawcett would have been slightly before. But I liked Rick Springfield. I liked his music and thought he was handsome. Anybody else you can think of?
No, not that I can think of.
How did Granny and Pap meet? So I have a video where Granny talks about that, talks about how much their love affair. I'll link to that. But it's a neat story how they met. So Pap's uncle, Wayne, who's really closer in age to Pap, because when big families in those days, or even today, happens, that's the way it happens. Sometimes the younger kids in a family end up being about the same age as some of those older kids that have already had kids, their kids, you know. So Pap's Uncle Wayne, but much closer in age to Pap than, like, of course, Pap's mother and some of his other aunts and uncles. He lived on the other side of the 4-lane from Granny and her family, and he was married to a lady named Violet. He lived there. And I guess he knew the family and, whatever. He wanted to fix Granny up with one of his nephews, but it wasn't Pap. It was a different one. And that's who he wanted to fix her up with. But somehow that didn't work out. And so then instead he said, well, I'll just fix you up with Jerry then instead. And so that's how they met. So Wayne is the result of Pap and Granny meeting and quickly falling in love, and I think they dated 3 months before they got married. Times were different in those days, but they were married over 50 years when Pap passed away. So, but I'll link to that. It's a beautiful, beautiful love story. Why do we not have goats for our hill up here?
Must be something else to feed.
There's a couple of reasons. For one thing, it would just be you've got to take care of them, and we've just never been in a position where we could do that. And then it's a really awkward place if you just put goats just in it, because it is so steep. So then you think about the fencing for it would be, and goats, like this fence down here on this part, would have to be so high because they could just literally jump off, jump over it and be gone. And
then once they eat it all, then what are we going to do?
Yeah, so it's just something
if they get loose, they're going to eat the garden.
Yeah, something that we'd love to have goats, but we'd like to have a nice place to put them instead of just that. If we had more land, flat land, wasn't on the goat bluff, even though Matt calls it that, it would be a good place for goats to hang out if you didn't have to worry about them being fenced in and bothering other people. We kind of talked about this one in some of the others, I think, maybe in a different video, but bears. We do have bears here, and you don't often see them, but sometimes you do see them come through the yard or see evidence of them, and Matt's got his deer cameras out right now, and so he's been seeing bear on them, especially a big mama and 2 cubs that have been...
They've been coming pretty regular, and the little cubs are playful, and they like to get up on the side of a tree and hang there, and while mama's pilfering around. Yeah. And she's pretty big, so I'll just have to keep my eye out for her.
Yeah, you will. Got a little hummingbird over there beside us. So another thing people wanted to know about, have asked me about, is this bracelet, and they wanted to know if Katie made it and why I always wear it. It's a really pretty silver bracelet, but Katie did not make it. It has a really pretty design on it. What would you call that, Matt? I don't know. Anyway, very pretty, very meaningful to me. My friends got it for me when I turned 50, and they had something inscribed in it, so I'll read that to you. We will be friends until we're old and senile. Then we'll be new best friends. Happy 50th, Tipper. And then they put their names, Ginger, Julia, and Shannon. So very special to me, and so I do wear it a lot. Makes me think of them and our friendship, and you know, it always makes you feel good to know your friends have got your back and you've got friends you can depend on. So I guess I really like it aesthetically. It's a really pretty bracelet, and I've always been somebody that loved bracelets. So it's that, but then also kind of like taking a piece of them everywhere I go. So it's pretty nice. I'm blessed with good friends.
Mm-hmm.
If we could live in another time, when would it be if you chose another time? That's a pretty hard one too, and that's the last one, so we'll end on this one. If we could live in another time.
I don't know. Cowboy days maybe, or even further back. I'd like to be a trapper.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I'd probably get killed early by...
Be mauled by a bear or something?
Yeah, probably. But it's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
I always like to read the books about those kind of people. It's a very interesting time to me.
Yeah.
But it'd be tough.
It'd definitely be tough, yeah.
And it'd probably be a little tougher than I could stand, but it's still cool to think about.
Yeah. I don't know, for me, I think like, you know, the early 1900s, the 20s, the 30s, here in our area would have been a good time to live, maybe in the 30s. It'd have been tough, like Matt's saying, but I think it would have been nice. I mean, I think as far as the living close to the land and all those things that Matt just mentioned, again, like he's saying, I probably am not tough enough that I could have lived then. And then sometimes I think about just if you could just go back and live like in the 70s, when me and Matt grew up in the 70s, or
that would be great.
You know, that time period when there still was, as far as modern conveniences, and maybe, you know, easier to, if you think about health issues and things like that, you know, maybe that'd been a good time. So I don't know. But it sounds like me and Matt wouldn't have lived at the same time, though. He'd be in the 1700s and I'd be in the 30s or the 70s.
I'm smarter than I look.
Yeah. I don't know. We love to think about, you know, you look back with romantic views of those times and it is true that a lot of it would have been more, I think, meaningful, as far as we live in such a busy, crazy world today. But then the flip side of that is the poverty and the toughness and struggling, and always the wolf at your door. You know, are you going to have enough to eat? Are you going to have enough to stay warm? All those things. So that definitely would have been a hardship that we can't understand, of course, today, living in the land of plenty.
It'd have been a little tougher to upload videos back then.
Yeah, that might have been a problem, huh? Might have been a problem. Yeah. And then the medical things, you know, there's a lot wrong with our healthcare system and all that you can talk about, but then there's also so many good things. I just focus on Corey and Katie. If I had been pregnant with them, even in the 70s, but definitely back in the 30s, I likely would have lost them, and they would not have been, you know, wouldn't have been here. So with modern medical technology, they discovered very, very early that I was already dilated, and, you know, they were nowhere near being viable babies. So anyway, all those things. But it does seem like a time when life was more meaningful back then, whether it was in the 1700s or the 30s or even the 70s.
Well, it was slower.
Slower, yeah.
And it, as a product of it being slower, people had just a different interaction with one another than they do now, and I kind of miss that.
Yeah.
But what do you do? Keep trying to be that way yourself, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. Well, we hope you enjoyed hearing, again, these were the questions from the Q&A videos that we did several weeks ago. We hope you enjoyed hearing our thoughts about these things, or finding out that Matt liked Farrah Fawcett. And he probably wasn't alone in that. As I said, I know there was lots of people. She was very, very popular.
Yeah, I thought it was just me and her.
She was popular for a lot of reasons, not just her beauty for men and boys that liked her, but her hairstyle. Now, I did try to have the Farrah Fawcett hairstyle, the wings, you know. I did try to have that, so she started a lot of trends, I guess.
I'm rocking the Kojak hairstyle now.
Yeah.
Just
Need to
because
get
I
you
ain't got
some,
no other choice.
I need to get you some lollipops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could start doing that instead of popsicles.
Yeah. As always, we're always grateful when you stop by to help us celebrate Appalachia, and to see, you know, you think, well, how in the world is this celebrating Appalachia? Me and Matt talking about all these things. I would say that it just gives an insight into the life people live in Appalachia, especially mine and Matt's generation. I think a lot of the things that we answered, you know, would be very typical for, I think, of you know, several couples on each side of us, both ways, that live in this area, that grew up like we did. Kind of a snapshot of growing up here. If you're of our generation, whether it was the Farrah Fawcett thing, or wishing you lived back then, or the favorite foods, or the things we do today, the hunting and fishing, or things like that. Be very, very similar.